Just Energy with naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theories that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swing of a pendulum to the waves in the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. In the same way, things such as rocks and minerals vibrate very slowly and at speeds that are imperceptible to us. Living things such as plants, animals, and man vibrate faster and appear to be alive. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is if we take everything in our own universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita as she explores questions such as, what are we made of? Why do we get sick? How can I live a more balanced and whole life? Call in and talk to her and her thought-provoking guests. Send us your questions and get the help you need to move beyond any obstacles or challenges that may be affecting your life, right from the source. So stay tuned and explore your possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Well, today we're going to be talking about UFOs and the evidence of UFOs and contactees and cover-ups and hoaxes and just alien stuff all day long. I have a couple of announcements before we bring our first guest on. We have two guests. The first hour we're going to be talking to Nick Redfern about his new book, Contactees. It's a history of the alien-human interaction. And in the second hour we're going to be talking to Kevin D. Randall about his new book, Crash, and it's the UFOs, Evidence, Cover-Ups, and Hoaxes. But anyway, on July 19th at 7 o'clock, I will be doing a free teleconference, the title of which is The Heart and Soul of Healing, where I'll be talking about why we get sick and how we can live a more balanced and whole life, just kind of like how we talk about at the beginning of the show. But it talks about the energetics of illness and disease and talks about how our thoughts and emotions really do affect our health. So please join me. It's July 19th at 7 p.m. You can go to globalteleclass.com and sign up for it. There's information or a link to it on the Just Energy Radio website. You can click on that and then register for the course. You do need to register for the course. And I will look forward to talking to you on July 19th. So let's see, any other announcements? We did have a winner of last week's Mind Yoga question, and we'll be announcing that a little bit later in the show, as well as this week's Mind Yoga question. And just to let you know, this week we're giving away a copy of CE-4, Close Encounters of the Possession Kind. And it's by William Baldwin, Ph.D. You know, kind of going along with that alien thing, we're going to be talking about Close Encounters of the Possession Kind. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Rick, because we have plenty to talk about, and get him on the air, and we will start talking. So Nick Redfern is the author of many books on UFOs. Now, he has a very interesting diversity. UFOs, aliens, okay, those go together, Bigfoot, werewolves, the Loch Ness Monster, and it's Nellie, or Nessie, not Nellie, paranormal phenomena, conspiracy theories, psychic powers, and Hollywood scandal. Okay. His titles include Contactees, Memoirs of a Monster Hunter, A Covert Agenda, Strange Secrets, The Three Men Seeking Monsters, The FBI Files, Celebrity Secrets, Cosmic Crashes, There's Something in the Woods, Science Fiction Secrets, On the Trail of Saucer Spies, Body Snatchers in the Desert, and Man Monkey. And so please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Nick Redfern. Hey, Nick, how are you doing?
Hey, Rita, I'm doing good, thanks, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for being here. You really do cover a wide variety of topics. I think the most interesting one to me that kind of seems a little out there is the Hollywood scandals, but maybe we'll have to talk about that one a different day because we have just so much to cover.
Yeah, I've got a lot of different interests, and I try and sort of vary what I do and keep people interested, hopefully.
Well, and I just found out on Facebook that a good friend of mine and a good friend of Just Energy Radio, Ken Gearcart, and you just released a brand new book.
Yeah, it's called Monsters of Texas. I've known Ken for about 6 years, and we become good friends. And Monsters of Texas is basically a study of all sorts of weird creatures in Texas, everything from the so-called Texas Chupacabra, Bigfoot reports, lake monsters, werewolves, out-of-place animals that shouldn't be in Texas but that there are, and sea serpents off the coast of Galveston, and all sorts of things like that. So.
Wow. Well, I'll have to have you or Ken or both of you come back on the show and talk about that book down the road. Sounds pretty good.
Good. Okay.
Especially, we are fellow Texans, and I need to know if I can go out and not get attacked by, Ken was talking about pterodactyls in Texas, and I'm like, that's a little scary.
Yeah. You don't want one of those coming down on top of you.
No, not at all. So your new book, Contactees, A History of Alien-Human Interaction, talks about this whole phenomena of people interacting with aliens. And when I started reading the book, I figured it was going to be kind of this overview of alien contact. But what I discovered was that the majority of the stories that you told in this book were prior to the Betty and Barney Hill story, which happened in the early 60s. And I think most people believe that there really wasn't anything going on prior to that time.
Yeah, the whole era of the contactees very much sort of began and reached its peak in the 1950s. But the big difference is with what came after in 1961 with Betty and Barney Hill, is that their case, I suppose, is one more along the lines of where they were taken on board a craft, subjected to medical experimentation, and their mind was, to an extent at least, sort of wiped clean of the memory of it. And of course, that's something that today we associate with a lot of UFO contact cases like Whitley Strieber and people like that. The classic alien abduction scenario. A lot of people who are particularly new to the subject, and also people who, have been in the subject some time, don't necessarily place, I suppose, much emphasis on the period that came before Betty and Barney Hill. This was the 50s with the contactees. And the big difference between the contactees and the later people was that most of their experiences didn't occur, I suppose, on board craft where they were subject, to the typical medical experimentation. They were more along the lines of literal face-to-face contact where these aliens would reportedly talk about their concerns with respect to atomic warfare and the destruction of the planet, and they tried to get the contactees, which were the name of the people who had the experiences, get the contactees to sort of spread the alien word, if you like, as to what they were doing here, etc. But after the 1950s, even though there were further reports, and we still even get a few to this very day, it really was the 50s that the contactees peaked, and then afterwards they kind of fell into like I won't say insignificance, but almost like a twilight realm where they weren't really given that much coverage anymore, and they were sort of pushed to the bysides and etc.
Why don't we hear about them? I've had a number of people come on and talk about UFOs and alien abduction, but nobody talks about them. What happened to them?
Well, it really was a case, I think, that when things like the Hills encounter began and the UFO subject kind of started to change a little bit in terms of the nature of the experiences, it seems to be whatever lies behind the UFO agenda, if you like. It changed in the 1960s from the more, I would say kind of the more gentle type of face-to-face contact in the 50s, and it was replaced by the more cold and clinical abduction-type contacts of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And what happened was that the contact cases, the sort I talk about in the book, they definitely went down